that his life's really super hard. It's, just lots of constituent demands, and sausage making is hard, and all of these things. And I just got to say that I don't think that there's any sort of public service that's more difficult, more challenging than what the 5 people that sit on our board do. And listen, I understand we've had our ups and downs this past year. It's been a difficult year. Probably there's no one in this room that feels completely comfortable with the manner in which things have been decided, the sorts of decisions that have been made. Listen, we get all that. I get all that. But I wanted to take a moment to recognize what it's like. So these are unpaid public officials, no office hours, no real secretarial or administrative support in a direct one-on-one sort of fashion. There's 5 of them. My brother-in-law is in here at 35. When he goes out in public, nobody takes the words he says as though they are the word of the government. He's a politician, and he can take you to lunch and pray over a meal, and you don't think, oh, that's government imposing itself on me. It's just, he's a politician. That's what politicians do. When we serve on the school board, we're a group of 5. It's much more, sort of compact. And the expectation, frankly, as I've watched doing this for nearly 22 years, every one of you has this expectation that if John utters something, whether it's sitting up here, or if it's in a meeting in your living room, or if it's wherever it is, maybe on Facebook, that it somehow is the utterance of government. And I want to make sure that we disentangle that. The 5 of them sitting outside of that dais, including here tonight, don't speak for the school district. They speak as individuals. The only time they speak in any authority is when we're sitting back there and we're taking votes based on our Robert's rules and our policies and the way that we interact. So I don't want us to be confused by that, because they all come with very different worldviews and perspectives and discipline about the way they say things and the manner in which they speak and all of that. So let's please acknowledge and understand that, because sometimes we can be too easily offended by those extraneous utterances. And tonight's going to be included in that. I'm going to ask each of them to say a few things at the beginning, and then I'm going to walk around kind of like the old Maury Povich shows, or whatever your old TV talk show.
Jerry Springer.
I hope it's not like that. It's more like Oprah. And I'm going to come to you.
We'll let you talk.
And then I might say, well, let's see what they have to say. If you want to keep talking, you want to interact with them, fine with me, just stand next to me. You ask your question, keep standing. All know that's a signal to me that you might want to respond to what they say. Fine with me?
Give you another chance.
I want to try to facilitate, there's, 80 of you here, and maybe 60 of you want to talk, so we're going to try to be concise about it and give everybody an opportunity and be respectful in that regard. But just raise your hand if you want to talk. I'll try to keep track of who was first and, kind of get around as best I can. And I don't know any of you, so I don't know, I might be taking 3 and 4 and 5 people to row with the same sort of perspective, and that's fine with me. I don't know who's who. So we'll do that. Let these guys talk. At the end, I suspect, frankly, that the more important conversations may happen after we've had all this, and then you can go corner John and say, boy, when you said this, I want to talk about that. And 10 of you can gang up on him and just figure out what you want to do. Everybody okay with those sort of ground rules? Probably going to go for an hour, take a little breath, maybe just kind of get up, stand, go to the restroom, drink water, and then come back for a second hour if there's energy for that. And if there's not, that's okay. I think the district is or the board is sort of contemplating that maybe this is something that could be more of a sort of routine event, maybe. So, they want to experience the voice of their community. So that's how this will go. Just quick, so I just kind of get a general data sense. Who here's parents of students in the district? Keep them up for a minute. You guys see that? All right, thank you. Staff members? non-connected in either of those ways, but yet constituents of the district?
Students, and students here?
Students.
Okay. Students? Okay. If you're a student and you want to ask a question, you get to me first, okay? If you want. I think that's most of what I wanted to cover. I will tell you, as some of you have noted, this is not being live streamed. This is not an official act of the district. By the way, it's midsummer when we normally wouldn't have a meeting. Our staff has already been, with your energy and being here, you know that this has been a rough year for millions of reasons. We're post-COVID, we're all the things that we are. So we didn't want to ask more setup and streaming and all that. So I apologize for that. Let's see what we do in the future with that. But that's not happening here. I see a camera looking at me here, and that's fine. You get this public meeting, so you can record what you want to. That's my expectation.
Make me look thin.
So,
There's no filter for that, John.
enough of me. I'm sorry about that. I won't talk much more substantively tonight. I would like to ask, John and Jeannie Lynn to take a couple minutes to talk about why they're here, whatever they might want to say as introductory remarks.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's really good to see such a good turnout. So I appreciate the fact that you guys came out to be able to talk to us. This is a great opportunity to hear from you. I really like being able to be a part of this town hall, and this is actually something that I've wanted to do from the get-go. And it took a little while for us to kind of get our head around what this would look like. And so thank you for bearing with us as we figure out this process. And this is something that I personally would like to see ongoing, so that we have a good understanding. It's really hard to do that in 3 minutes during an open forum when the board doesn't respond to you, and it feels very not personal. It doesn't seem, it's hard to really interact and know someone unless we have discussions. And so I think this is really important, a very good opportunity and a step in the right direction for our district. And so I'm really excited to see what you guys have to say and have to share with us.
When I first looked to put this together, it was more of a smaller group, and then it became, they asked for a town hall, and then it was, back to the smaller group. But I think this is the right venue for everyone, what side of the aisle, this or that you're on, to get to us. And we're gonna make it a regular series. We're gonna make it a regular series and try to do it 2 at a time. Eventually we may get to where we do a town hall with all 5 of us, but right now we want to just basically get ground rules settled so that there's just 2 of us here. This is a conversation. That's the way I see it. And instead of ganging up on me at 9 o'clock at night tonight, you can also invite me to coffee and I'll come, as I have done more than 15 times with different and various groups, to sit down, talk to you, get to know you, see what your concerns are. I may not agree with your concerns, but I do want to listen. And you may not agree with my positions, but I hope you want to listen so we can find some middle ground to really find out what is important to the parents and guardians and what positively affects our students. But we also have other stakeholders. We have grandparents, we have business owners, we have landowners, okay, staff that are also parents and sometimes just staff, and sometimes they're both. And we want to hear from everyone. Everybody's voice here, and I've said this even last year, everybody's voice is important to hear. I ask that you keep it respectful and polite even when we disagree, and when I don't do that, you hold me accountable, okay? So I didn't do it once last summer, I'm trying to do better now, and we'll see where we go with this, but it should be a conversation, and everybody should come away with, at least I felt heard, okay?
Is there any student requests? Any students want to speak? Any parents?
I have a question on behalf of the student. Is that?
Sure.
I'm gonna grab her and I'm gonna come
Yes,
to you.
please.
I'm gonna start to try. How many people want to ask questions that you might, tonight? See, so it's got to be a number. Okay, let's start here.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Lusk. I'm a D49 I want to thank everyone here for showing up for our kids and for our staff. I have two concerns I would like to address. One is when my kids started kindergarten, I choiced them into a different district because at the time, D49 was kind of in chaos. And a few years later, Peter Putz came in and he set the district on the right path. Oh, sorry, that was loud. After that, we brought our kids into D49 and I even saw an appointment here. I am growing concerned about the future of D49 and the recent departures of both Brett and Pedro. In addition to Peter having sought employment elsewhere, this has me questioning what is going on behind the scenes that is not yet public. Having lost 2 of our 3 chief officers, has the board conducted a root cause analysis and determined a solution to halt the mass exodus of top leadership? And if so, I would love to hear what you can share. I would also like to know what the board is doing to retain Peter. If not, when can we expect to hear the results and forward-thinking plan?
You take that first.
I was trying to write down the different questions. So the future of District 49. Awesome. You were the best.
You got handouts for everyone? You don't bring enough. Right? There's not what teachers.
So I see this as a great opportunity for our district, because we do want to be able to further the direction of our strategic objectives, as well as the direction of the school district. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to think about what we can do to continue to push forward and to move forward in the ground that we have. And so tomorrow, Wednesday, the board is having a special meeting to discuss this very topic. And I am actually very excited to see what the 5 of us are going to agree upon in order for us to continue to move forward. And so that is definitely something that will be shared more after we have that special meeting. And I'm really excited about that. There was other questions, hold on. Oh, I have my own, sorry. The root cause analysis, you had asked about that as well. And so part of the strategy that we have is to have an expert who's more understanding of every level of our district than we are, because we're not the experts when it comes to running the board or running the district. Running the board, but running the district for sure. And so having third-party people helping us with finding out the root causes and why people are leaving, and we've actually directed, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've directed the chief officers previously to help with the retention of our staff. Anyone add to that?
So, as far as the district goes, I think these are great opportunities that Pedro and Brett and other employees are looking at. I think Peter applying as a superintendent in an adjacent district was a great opportunity. He's not superintendent here. So that was a great opportunity for him. And what I have said to him, the chief officers and senior leaders, and really anybody who ever asks, is I will always encourage and support the decision of an employee to seek a more professional advancement. I've written letters of recommendations for employees. I looked for that when I was in the Marines, to have young captains and young sergeants, get trained a certain way so when they can achieve their goals. So I look at this again as, they're moving on of their own will. They weren't forced out. I wish them the best luck going out there. I think they're going to make great strides in whatever organization they go to. That also provides an opportunity for the district then to say, are we at where we want to be? Or is there somewhere else we want to go, as Jamie Lynn had said? And we're looking into that. We haven't directed the third party, but it's something that we're going to be discussed as one of the many, many options that we have. My feeling is that this district still is trending the nation and the state of Colorado in almost everything we do. We are achieving reading growth like we haven't seen before. We are doing so many wonderful things for the choice of not only parents, school choice, but program choice for students, those individual pathways that we talk about on the compass. And there's nothing that's going to stop this district from being the best district in this region. Nothing. Not the board screwing up, not the board being successful. It's all based on you guys doing what you always do to bring those students higher and higher. I hope that answers your question. I'm not looking at a root cause analysis because I already know that we have to look at more at why are teachers and staff leaving more than why two chief officers left.
Okay, that does answer my question. I do have concerns though, because I do remember what D49 was like before Peter Else came and before he, Brett, and Pedro worked together to make it the district that it is. So that's part of the concern about them leaving is our top people who brought it here, 2 of the 3 are gone. So that's the concern. Okay, and the next concern is, I believe we all have the same goal in mind, and that is to do what's best for our kids, for D49 students. However, it appears we're not working together to get there. The reason I say this is because of the perception among many D49 staff that certain board members don't trust us as professionals. For example, recommendations for major changes to research-based programs with barely a surface level knowledge of the curricula, or the D49 professionals and subject matter experts who facilitate these programs. So I would like to hear the board's plan for increased teamwork so we can put these perceptions behind us. If there is no current plan, how can the board partner with D49 staff to create an environment where all concerned parties are working together to do what's best for our students? I love this district, and I have no intention of sitting idly by and watching it return to chaos. As such, I'll be the first to volunteer my time to come alongside the board to determine how teamwork can be accomplished.
Sorry. You think I'm loud enough? I have a pretty solid voice.
Can you all hear me in the back?
Yeah.
If I talk like this, will you hear me?
No. I wish I could be like that, but I use a red cat in my classroom. If anyone in here know what a red cat is? It's an amplifier for classrooms. Anyway. Okay, so I really appreciate that question because I'm also a teacher, and I think it's important that we value teachers for who they are. Teachers are the #1 person who influences the kids in their class. And so I want to see full teamwork with teachers. And I think how we get there is to have more of the dialogue style with teachers on site. So something like this is, I'm speaking for myself, not for the board. But being able to, for me as a board member, to go into a school after hours with the teachers who would like to be there to talk about what's best strategies, what's best practices, what can we do. I loved touring the schools. That was my favorite thing. It's hard for me to tour schools because I'm a teacher. But if there would be teachers who are willing to stay after school in order to talk to me, I would love to be able to do that with them. I think that would be a step in the right direction. I also think it's important that all board members are involved in that, not just one, because something that's really hard being as a board member is there's 5 of us, and if you have more than one person, you guys know, you have conflict, right? More than one person, you're in a marriage, right? For example, you're always you're not gonna see eye to eye. And so anytime you have more than one person, there's gonna be a little bit of friction. And so for us, something that I'm foreseeing and looking forward to is as a board, that we're really working together as a board instead of 5 individuals. And that's what we're working toward. And I'm really excited about that opportunity that we're having on Wednesday, that special meeting, because I think that's gonna put us in the right direction and to help us, for us, because our main goal is to put the support behind the teacher, because you are the #1 person who is teaching those kids. And was there any other questions?
So let's go ahead and move on, if that's okay.
Sure.
I have 30 people on this meeting. By the way, the special meeting on Wednesday is going to be primarily an executive session. Again, it'll be posted as an open meeting, but it's going to be 2.5 hours in private. So just FYI, if you want to hang out there. Right here.
Thank you. I'm asking this question on behalf of a senior named Sage at Falcon High School. She could not be here tonight, but wanted to be heard. She says, as a high school student in this district, I am appalled and fearful of the future of this district. I see that the administration covers up sexual assault cases and more than once blames the victim. I've seen the security roaming the halls attempting to give students a sense of safety, but it all means nothing unless they take us seriously. The school is focused chiefly on outward threats of who can and who cannot get into the building, but the real danger is the people inside their doors. We deserve to have a safe learning environment. What are your plans to change to ensure this?
Oh, you want me to take the tough one? Okay. So, #1, sexual assault is never okay. Violence is never okay. Bullying is never okay. And we have a SCAT, which is a enhanced security team that's trying to address those problems. So sometimes there are accusations that are made and we have to follow the law. If it's not reported to the police and it's not prosecuted, there's only so much we can do because we follow the Constitution. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. There are things that a school can do, such as separating them beforehand or before, after an incident takes place. But, if the DA is not prosecuting and the person's not found guilty in a court of law, it's very limited to what we will do, not just what we can do. If a person's found innocent, we can't hold that person responsible. So the school is not a legal system, even though we're governmental. You have to follow the law. And a lot of times the law says you got to protect the rights of 2 individuals, victim and alleged, defendant, whatever. But, what we have to do is, if violence is a factor, and, we do have to take action. And what I'd like to see this year, on top of a lot of other things that we're doing. By the way, if you guys want to raise your property taxes like 10%, that really helps
Happy to.
fix all these problems, okay? But we have to take bullying seriously. Adults do have to get involved. But what happens when an adult gets involved? They get blamed, and then everyone wants to fire them, things like that. So it's a matter of respect, okay? We have to respect the potential victim. We have to respect the potential perpetrator because they're innocent until proven guilty, and we have to respect the people who are trying to do something. So part of that's going to be identifying where those problems are and fixing them, but only in accordance with the law.
Okay, and this is not part of the student's question. It just occurred to me as you were giving a response that I'd like to ask. Not being a student in that school, not being a staff member in that school, I can't speak to what does or does not happen, but is there an opportunity to improve transparency for those parties involved so that they understand what you're attempting to do is follow the law and do what's right within the law?
Well, we should always explain what our process is and that the process follows the law. That's pretty much the first step. People don't think we're doing enough because we're not dictating. So if you want the school system to dictate on one side, you have to be prepared for it to dictate on the other side too. And you gotta be careful with that. I hope that answers your question, but I think the SCAT does have community input to these things, and certainly bullying is something that we would like to have addressed. I could talk the rest of the night till midnight on bullying, okay? Go ahead.
We do have processes that would focus on going to the closest level, talking to the teacher, talking to the principal, moving through that process, so that might be a tool to think about as well. Parents, still looking for parents.
If it's okay, I'm going to stay sitting down. Public speaking is not a strength of mine at all. Thank you. I tell my students all the time that you have to push yourself to do those things that are uncomfortable so that you become more comfortable for you. So this is my first time speaking in a board meeting, and I'd like to thank you both for your service and appreciate each side and what you contribute to the discussion. My name is Diane Andrew. I'm going to try my best to keep this as short as possible. I'm a special education teacher, and I have a master's in applied behavior analysis. I'm a former District 49 special education teacher, and I'm the parent of two wonderful high school-aged children who attend Falcon High School. One of my children has had an IEP since the age of 3. His school career started much younger than most. I'm also here to provide what we also like to do when we teach, and that is a glow and a grow. So to think critically about things that we learn, we understand. We have to put ourselves in a position where we can say, what are we doing that's great? And there's a lot of it. We're a great district, we're doing great things. But we have some spaces to improve. And if we don't, we simply acknowledge what we're doing well and not acknowledge what we're not doing well, we're not going to get to a solution. Not last school year, but the school year prior, Falcon High School turned over their entire special education department. This school year, Falcon High School lost 5 special education teachers midterm. In short, they lost every special education teacher that they had hired, with the exception of 2 teachers who started later in the year, after the second semester started. Upon my leaving, my replacement had no educational background. She was hired as a long-term sub, and she was tasked with working with our students' affective needs population. If you're not familiar, those students are impacted by serious emotional disabilities. This teacher had no experience, no training, no support, and felt unsafe in her role. She's not returning next year. I have so much more to say, and I would love to take you up on your suggestion for coffee. That's where I'm most comfortable versus speaking in front of my peers like this. I'm trying to get there, so thank you. But there's a lot to talk about. I have specific examples. I have things in writing. I have data I'm willing to share. I will tell you the voice of teachers is suppressed. Teachers are afraid of repercussions. They're afraid of negative or lack of references, which I have personally experienced and have been prevented from getting another position in a school district for that reason. You're not hearing everybody who wants to talk because we're scared. We're scared of repercussions against us, against our children and the students that we teach. So I guess my question with that background is, what are the plans to provide some accountability for the administration at Falcon High School? As teachers, if we are not successful in our positions, we are required to go on a performance plan. What is being done to improve the administration at Falcon High School? Our children don't get a do-over. This is their one and only high school experience. Thank you.
So, first of all, Can I see how many zone leaders are in the building? Can you stand up? You know what our zone leaders are? They're assistant superintendents. Stand up. I see 3 of them, right? So those are Sand Creek Zone, Power Zone, I-Connect Zone. Okay, Sue Holmes is, I don't think I see her here at this time. But zone leaders are the ones that should be answering that. And no one, whether they're a teacher or custodian, should be retaliated against by anybody in the administration without, there just shouldn't be. You know, if their disagreement is fine, but proper conduct is what matters. If you're being polite, if you're being civil, because we live in a civil society, no retaliation. Now, can I see hands of who have met with either me or Jamie Lynn in the last 6 months? And if you turn around, you stand up, you can see all these people. I'm willing to sit down with people and have coffee so that you can be heard for the ones who aren't afraid here. And what I have said since the first month I have been on the board, I will talk to anybody and there will never be retaliation. Unless you hit me, then I'm going to retaliate. Okay? So, there's a lot more to what had happened at Falcon High School, and we can't address those kind of personnel matters in such a public forum. But people have been held accountable for certain things that didn't work out right. Okay, it may not seem like that because we don't talk about, oh, we did this to this person or we wrote a letter for that person. We don't talk about personnel issues. Okay, what needs to take place is not only for special education, which is one of our strategic priorities, but focusing on the student and the classroom is where we're moving into this next year. And so hopefully we're going to see better supports for the classroom, better supports for teachers, and better supports for new principals and vice principals. That's what we're hoping on, okay? And
as of last week, none of the positions that have been vacated have been filled. School's about to start.
Do I need to come back up?
no, the question is none of the positions that have been vacated at Falcon High School's special education department have been filled yet. And let's be clear so everybody here can tell their families, their friends, their neighbors. Every school district is having a problem filling positions. We're over 200, we're about 200 positions short, right? And Falcon has always had a hard time filling it because it's so far out of the way and budget is only so much, but we're looking at plans to address that. We're not going to hire hundreds of positions this year. We're not going to be able to.
I am a highly dedicated teacher. I live 15 minutes from Falcon High School, and I was super excited to be there. I had great family relations.
Yeah, he's chastising me right now. We can have this, let's have a conversation over some coffee.
I have someone back here.
Hi, my name is Joanne Cord, and I was a special education teacher at Falcon High School last year. No idea that Miranda would be here, but I did work with her, and I was one of the ones that stayed till the end. And I just want to say, there was a lot of stuff going on, and I'm not disrespecting any board member. I just want to say with all due respect that it's a lot more than just these nice, calm words. There was serious things happening. That if you really want to sit down and have a cup of coffee and really hear the truth about a person who had their sleeves rolled up and their hands in the gutter all year, I will gladly talk to you. But I do have several grievances against the district, and I haven't heard about really any of them except one kind of slightly. District is not following their timelines, yet I was under so much pressure to call this time. If you don't get it in by right now, this date, this minute, very end, I lost all my opportunity, and now it's been since the middle of July almost, I haven't heard anything. And this is about my life and about students' lives. My grievances talked about students and about myself. So when I stand here and I hear also a board member again, with all due respect, talking about the law, about sexual harassment, this and that, gotta follow up. You're talking to people that do not know the law, and they're gonna take your word as gold. And let me tell you people, I am an attorney. than what I'm hearing tonight. Thank you.
Are there parents? Can I go all the way to the front corner there? By the way, I need to get my hip replaced, so I'm moving really slow. I apologize. So.
My name is Lorraine. Excuse me, and I've been in the district since 2006. I have 4 children that have been in the district who graduated. One in the Sand Creek zone will be graduating next year, and I'll have one in the Falcon zone. I'm also a medical professional that works in our district, and I also am a homeowner. I've talked to John a couple times, you know, in person and over the text and whatever else we've done. And I've sent a couple of emails to the board. One of my concerns is that I don't feel as a parent or a homeowner or a professional that we're really getting down to the nitty-gritty. I hear a lot of nice words being spoken, but I see very little action. And I'm very concerned. I've been to about 5, 6 board meetings. And since 2006, I've never felt the need to go to a board meeting because I trusted the people that were on the board. I no longer trust the board. And that's saying a lot. This is a long time I've been in the district. And I don't trust when we say we need to follow the law. What does that look like? As a medical professional, I can't go into a work-related thing and marginalize people. That would be against my code of ethics. I can't go into other environments where people know that I'm representing my work and say things, call people names, show a lot of bias against individuals. The Colorado Anti-Discrimination Law requires you as teachers and as board members and as anybody representing the state of Colorado to follow the law. I'm not seeing that. And it's upsetting to me on multiple levels that we can sit here and have conversations that mean nothing. It's wasting our time and it's wasting my children's time. My son is just finished 8th grade. He hears the word the N-word being thrown around like it's common knowledge that anybody who ever wants to say something negative is gonna. I've heard kids say they were gonna put another child of color as a slave. I've heard teachers say things that are biased. As Rebecca Less talks, you know, what you guys are saying is, we have Peter right here. Why don't we ask Peter directly? Why are you trying to leave our district? Why don't we have Petra? Why are we leaving our districts? Because we had something that was well and good going, and now we're going downhill fast. 2006, I've been in this district. I think longer than you had a teaching license. So why are we going in a direction that's putting our kids in a negative, vulnerable position? Why aren't we following the laws of the anti-discrimination law? Why are we allowing kids to be marginalized? Why are we calling children's names when we're sitting at the board? Why are we allowing people that were stripped of their duties as a board member to still have a vote? There is so much wrong. I could go on and on and on. But I don't believe that the board is doing the right thing. I don't believe when you speak of wickedness, that it's okay when you're referring to a transsexual. I don't believe that the LGBTQ community should have any concerns about coming to a meeting and feeling safe. And I certainly don't think that when I'm sitting in a meeting and some white man in the back is screaming as somebody's trying to have a conversation, that I feel safe. So when we talk about having town hall meetings, it's more important that we're actually seeing action, not just hearing action. I don't want to come to another meeting and have somebody screaming from the back at a woman that's trying to speak. That's uncalled for. Now, man should be exited out. That's not safe for a woman. Women don't feel comfortable when men are screaming at them. And when our 2 out of 3, that's 66% of our board is leaving, or our executive level is leaving, and they've been here a long time. And we're talking about toxic environments, which you brought up several times. And I have listening to board members continue to speak about questions that have already been answered at the time that they're asking the question, because they're not taking the time to either listen to reading what's said, or that they're not reading the material that's issued So my question is, please give me some actual information about what is the plan. What is your plan with Peter? Are you going to help move him into a position of a superintendent? Are you trying to make him feel so isolated and overworked that he feels the need to leave our community? What is the plan? And I don't want these beautiful words about we need to follow the law, because we're not following the law. You're not following the law when you make comments like what you've made in the last maybe 7 board meetings. We're not following the law on a lot of different things. So stop telling me what we need to do and start showing me what we need to do, and I would like to know, what will that look like? When will that happen? When are you, as board members, going to be held accountable for your actions?
So, after an hour and a half meeting with Peter today, we said we're going to discuss this on Wednesday. So I can't give you any more information. I can say what I want or what I think are the possibilities, but then someone is going to take it as the gospel and they're going to go into a panic until we talk about it Wednesday. That's the problem with being on a board, is we have to sit down, discuss things, and then vote in public. And if I can't really discuss, because I don't know what the other board members are going to do. We don't have private conversations. I should say, have a lot of private conversations unless I've been assigned by the board to work on those. Yes, we do follow the law as a district, or at least we're supposed to. I have no control over other board members, what they say when they have comment periods. You guys do. You don't like what a board member says, you speak up. If you're a voter here, you have options. I'm not removing another board member. I don't have the authority. I don't have the desire to get into that political mess, but predominantly there's no authority. Jamie Lynn and I can't choose who's on the board, who's not at this juncture, okay? But we are going to discuss. In my opinion, no one's isolating Peter. Peter was retained by the board. It's a one-voice vote. Doesn't matter who voted no, who voted yes, he's retained. He gave me assurances today that he wants to stick it out. He's going to put out a positive message to the staff. I think by Wednesday. We said I could say that. You want to have Peter join us or have him speak for that question? I didn't even know he was here. Okay, he says no. He's developing that. Peter and I had a very good conversation. I'm sure he's had conversations with other board members to start. He just got back from vacation. I just got back from, some rugged camping trip. And just stand by. Don't jump ship yet, because the ship ain't sinking. Okay? And
okay, so it's important to understand where I come from when I'm speaking on behalf of myself during board meetings. It is a huge concern of parents, constituents, people of faith, of things that are being taught in the actual classroom. And so I know you might disagree with me, but we do have evidence of these things being taught in classrooms.
What is
What
it?
things? What things?
Yeah,
What
you don't.
things?
In District 49.
Of what? What are these things? What are the things?
So
Please be clear.
the pronoun survey that went out at a middle school here in town made it very clear at the bottom that everything would be kept confidential from the parents. And that is a huge concern. And it is perfectly fine if you so desire to have that in your home, That's your prerogative.
In the world.
But what's not okay is pushing that and forcing it on other children. And that's not okay. And so
Not
that's what I'm
happening,
saying.
not happening.
And I, as a believer, I am not going to back down from my beliefs. This is a part of who I am.
No one's telling you
This is
to.
where I have come from. This is what's going to keep our nation on the right track. We are going to lose our country if
Allah
we do
Akbar.
not.
Listen, everyone.
Ask Saudi Arabia. Ask Saudi Arabia how it's going.
Hold on. Folks, we're actually here in part because we had a perception of people not feeling safe to speak. I know. Let's respect it in both ways. I understand controversial statements may be said. We're just gonna not raise our voices here, okay? We're not going to do that. You had your hand pretty conspicuously raised. Over next.
I probably don't need this. My name's Sam Fritzinger. My wife is Tawny Fritzinger. Our daughter attends school here. I say daughter because she does identify as a female. What she was born with is none of your freaking business, okay? I say wife, I should say Scott. We are both U.S. Army veterans. We joined before September 11th. We've learned a lot about religious extremism, and we are very concerned when we see churches putting out statements about how they have successfully infiltrated, well, of course they don't say infiltrated, successfully got their board members elected to this school board. And up there it says value all people. There are 3,000 different gods, goddesses, and other forms of mythology and deities, and if you believe in any of them, that's fine. I don't believe in any of them, so we may have a difference of 2,999 deities that we don't believe in, and that's just fine. But you just said that when they are speaking behind that podium, they're speaking as D49 representatives. Is that correct?
No.
No.
When they take action as a board, they're speaking as the district. When they speak as individuals, they are not. And it's a very different scenario. Listen, not every word that's said up here is completely defensible. I understand that. But it's not as though there's conspicuous law breaking going on. This is expression, just personal expression. Just as we're a limited public forum and you come out to public comment at a board meeting, we don't get to constrain what you talk about as long as you're not personally attacking people and so forth.
But there are people who personally attack teachers. At the last board meeting, there was a woman who was very much unhinged who came up and claimed that there were counselors in this district performing sex change operations on students. Does anyone remember that woman? She was horribly unhinged. These individuals, that's on TikTok. A lot of this is on TikTok. People talking about the dark one infiltrating our school and embracing Jesus. That stuff is on TikTok. People think that's SNL skits. That is not. This is our school board. These are people who say value all people. They don't value all people. They say sustain, enduring, trust. How are we supposed to trust you when you don't represent everybody? You obviously are trying to push your own personal religious views on people and on our students, which will not be tolerated, all right? U.S. Army, I fought religious extremism overseas. I fight religious extremism here. Don't think you're any different from the Taliban, because you are not. But when someone comes up and makes these horrible claims about teachers in our district, why is you can't say anything to support the teachers? You can't say, no, they're not actually doing sex change operations. You just sit there and you let them say this. And you sit here and you talk as if everyone believes the same things you believe. We don't, okay? I am an atheist. My child is an atheist. We don't believe in any of your mythology, okay? If you believe in that, that's fine. But you think we're trying to push our agenda when you are in a position of power. You are the one sitting there. You are the one pushing your agenda. By the way, under God wasn't added to the Pledge of Allegiance until 1958. So there's that too.
So, I'm allowed to say the Pledge of Allegiance just as it's written.
That's fine.
Right?
And I'm okay with
So
that.
the difference is that when we're behind those tables there, that's why we're not behind the tables now. When we're behind those tables, we still have a First Amendment right to speak our conscience. okay? I don't sit there and disparage people. I don't speak for the other board members. When people spoke up at the last meeting, our process is, just so you understand it, is to wait until everybody's done. And then I actually addressed that there are a bunch of untruths happening. A bunch of things that are not true being said. Now, I didn't mean to call that one individual out, but I didn't. And our process also is we try not to call out speakers so that people get to say what they have to say. If our teachers need me to come to their school to say, I know you're not cutting the breasts off of 14-year-olds, invite me, I will talk about that. I've offered every zone leader and every principal that I will come to their school and talk to their staff and answer their questions. That's also why we're here, to answer your questions and you address your concerns. Okay? Jamie Lynn, Ivy, myself, we all still have the First Amendment right to speak behind that podium. And if you don't like it, then get to the voting booth, get a challenger, and when she's up again, you can replace her. When I'm up again, well, I'm not going to be up again. When anybody else is up again, you can replace them. Okay?
You're here for a lifetime?
No, I'm not here for a lifetime.
Are you gonna run? You should run. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you can run for the school board. I was very transparent when I was running. I was very transparent what I was running for and what I stood on. And it's important that you guys understand that all people are created equal. That God gave us these rights. And and you can say there is no God, but if there is no God, then who gives you your rights? Where do your rights come from? If they come from the government can take them away.
Well, then come and get them.
So it's important to know that there's a higher authority. There's a higher authority over everything that we do. And even if you don't believe in that higher authority, that's the truth. And you will know
That's
the truth,
your
and the
truth,
truth
though.
will set you free.
That's your truth.
That's absolute truth. Absolute truth is the word of God. And I know you won't agree with me on that. That's perfectly fine. But that does not change the fact that there are two genders, one boy, one girl. That is it. And if you are teaching children something opposite, you are teaching them lies, not the truth. And that's not okay. Science does say that.
Who tells you that that's the truth?
100% science.
No.
By the laws of nature and of nature's God.
Look,
We follow those laws.
you're God. You're God. Oh my God.
I'm just a lawyer, but I'm just trying to figure it out. Purple shirts kind of stand for something. So I'm gonna try to get some more diversity. You guys are going forever.
Isn't that a bad word then? Diversity?
So John, you asked if we have questions to directly question someone. So I would like to directly question, thank you, Jamie Lynn. I'm sorry, I am a homeowner, a parent, and a teacher here in the district. And I do agree that retaliation is definitely a worry. Me standing up right now is a worry because of such a toxic, toxic feeling that you have created. But I do have a question for Jamie Lynn. So you do say, and I believe I'm a Christian as well, and I do believe that you have a right to say what you're saying, but my daughter is a part of the LGBTQ community, and as a representation of this district, you've got to realize that what you say impacts children. You say you're about children. Okay? You say you're about children. You impact children. And LGBTQ, El Paso County has such a high rate of suicide. Okay? Dave did a beautiful presentation on that, Dave Pratt. LGBTQ students have even more of a rate of suicide. And when you, in a very public forum, say that to children, you are putting children at risk. Take yourself out of it. Take yourself out of it. Those comments can be in your church. But you need to take yourself out of it. Children take to heart what you're saying. And also at the Vista Ridge, my daughter just graduated from Vista Ridge. Your comment about a higher being at their graduation, at a public school graduation, was completely inappropriate. Says me, yes, absolutely. Because I don't think if you understand, this is a public school district. If you have those strong convictions, which you do, and that's admirable. I don't have to agree with them, but there are things called private schools that you can go and try to change and be with people that agree with you. But you are a public school district with all shapes and sizes and preferences of students. I'm not even getting started on our children of color in this district, because you have made some very derogatory statements. My question is to you. Do you think about that population of students when you make those public statements? That's my question.
So those students are on my mind every day because I have that compassion for them. They need love. They need unconditional love and forgiveness in knowing who they are. And I pray for those kids. They also need the truth.
It's not your responsibility.
No.
It's important for them. That is what is going to help them. That's important. It's extremely important
Parents' rights?
for the truth to be told.
Their blood is on your hands.
Listen,
Yes, it is
my
100%.
daughter, we go to church. We believe. But I also believe that my child has a right to be who she is. And I will be against if someone tries to take that away from her. Because you know somebody in your life that fits in that community. But unfortunately, they don't feel comfortable enough to come out to you, to speak their truth, because all they hear is hate. And that's sad.
Move to the other side of the room. I've seen you up. I'll get you in a little bit.
All right, cool. I'm gonna hold you to that.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming. This we'll continue this time. It's a good thing. Teachers are in a really terrible spot right now. It seems like there's always someone who's mad at them. Not only do they have daily and weekly assessments in reading, math, and SEL to administer and enter, but they also have state tests to administer. Some of them they agree with, some of them they don't. They are dealing with pandemic and learning loss and are supposed to be mental health experts. Everyone seems to expect that they be the best of the best in all these areas for marginal pay. We want to keep great teachers, so doesn't it seem like we're asking an awful lot from them? Something needs to change here, I'm not sure what, but I was going to talk about curriculum tonight, but with some of the comments, we did have 2 chief officers who moved on. It's just assumed that they left for negative reasons. Maybe they left to better themselves. As far as pushing beliefs, if one person believes something, they shouldn't probably push it. If one person believes something else, they probably shouldn't push it either. It goes both ways.
It does.
And since I was going to talk about curriculum, and I'm not now, I'm pretty well done. We need to look at each other as people. We can't look at each other as what's on the news. We're not little screen edits. Just because I have gray hair and I was raised in a Catholic family doesn't mean I believe X, Y, Z. And just because you didn't doesn't mean you believe ABC. So let's look at each other as people, find out what our commonalities are, and work from there.
We're going to close out the first hour with this person. You're going to start the next section here.
So nervous. Can I get back your phone?
Hi there, my name is Amanda Lazar, and I'm the parent of 2 children here in District 49 at a charter school, which I have to be honest, I'm quite thankful for, because they have their own board of directors that they report to. I'm going to quote one of my favorite movies, and that is Attitude Reflects Leadership. Okay? There's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of harsh words going back and forth. Okay? Deb, I know well, makes a very good point. Teachers right now, and having been in the classroom, as a social studies middle school teacher, our students need us more than anything, and more than ever. And COVID destroyed our learning communities in a lot of ways. Schools are seeing an increase in behavioral issues stemming from a lack of face-to-face contact with peers, not being able to truly have conflict resolution. Okay, I don't have to tell anybody, I'm sure everybody's on the same page here. As a country, the last couple of months have been pretty difficult when it comes to school shootings, acts of violence, things like that, okay? It seems like people in general are angrier. There's a lack of compassion, a lack of grace, and that really concerns me. This district has made national news for reasons that are not positive necessarily, okay? And when we bought our house here 5 years ago, we were very, very excited to move into D49. And I have to say, that's not the case. We've looked at moving, which would either mean driving my children further because they love their school, or taking them out of the school that they love to move them somewhere else. You don't know my religious beliefs, and that's because it doesn't matter. Okay? Our personal opinions, our personal religious beliefs don't matter. I will say we are a minority religion, and some of the things that I have heard truly just hurt my heart, and make me concerned for my kids on what they're experiencing in their own lives, perhaps on a daily basis from what they hear at home. It has a direct trickle-down effect. So I don't have a question. I've watched the board meetings online most of the year, and I haven't seen a reason to feel hopeful. I haven't seen a cohesiveness, even amongst the board. The Board of Education sets the tone. You set the tone for the district, you set the tone for the staff, you set the tone for the parents. If you guys can't run the Board of Board of Education in a professional manner, and Brad, you've gotten we've paid you out of public funds to essentially get us out of some of the legal things that have come up, and that's a waste, guys. That is a waste of our taxpayers' dollars. You can say that, but what I would say is going forward into this new school year, it's been a rough last year. But I would say if we could please have a unified presence, that goes a long way to instill confidence and your families that you're serving, the students that you're serving, and the staff that you're serving. Thank you.
So, I'm going to let these guys just escape. We're going to not go chase them down. If they want to get a drink of water, do whatever they need for 5 minutes. We'll be back in 5 minutes. If you need somebody to talk to, come ask for pictures of my brand new granddaughter. She's gorgeous. And we're going to be back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
You better give us some pictures now.
Gotta find another one.
I had no idea.
Hope they white balloons that maybe
I know, right?
get some people's attention.
It was good. It brings.
My wife wanted to come here. She was like, unfortunately, they'll probably listen to a dude more than me. And I was like, it's unfortunately.
I think that she kind of asked your question already.
Yeah, it literally brings tears to my eyes when I hear her talk. It's very frustrating.
Government 200 years and tear it apart.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't stop the body
I'm glad there are other staff members here because I will represent myself as a staff member. Yeah.
It's just, I know. It blows my mind.
The problem is they say that they're speaking as individuals, but the problem is when they are able to implement their positions as individuals, as a board, and they're able to push that forward and make rules and policies regarding that. You know,
Am I going to get shot for my question when I call out for not being a religious person? My question.
We're all going to wind
up because I'm a non-American. I'm here on a visa. Like I'm here. I'm legal. Don't build the wall. Don't wall. I can show you what I did bring it in case anyone was like.
My parents have been here since 1969. Refuses to be citizens. They're like, my mom.
No, I don't want to be.
She's like, nope, I'm
not
good.
gonna do it.
They took me kicking and screaming to get my Colorado license.
Right, driver's license.
I had to sit through the driver's license class with the 16-year-olds. I'm 33. Like I've been driving for like 20 years.
Iran had people going there for college. They had people going there to learn. There were women wearing miniskirts in American movies and look at it now. It's because of the religious extremism.
Right, inflating.
I can feel the tears getting in my when she starts talking. It's just like,
100%.
And I said, isn't there meant to be a legal separation of religion and state? As a non-citizen, a resident, taxpayer, homeowner, parent of 2 children and D49, I'm concerned, given the first opportunity, the board will blur this line.
yeah.
They already have. Obviously.
I'm not saying I'm a white man in America.
Absolutely.
I'm not against religion being taught in school, but teach them religion.
You teach it as like a context of we're learning world history.
Exactly.
We're learning
World religion.
Yeah, we're learning world culture. We're learning, like the Arabic numbers thing that somebody put on there. It's like, okay, we have never seen that before.
I do that. I'm pretty sure that they were just confused about what
Roman numerals.
Spray away their feelings.
Right.
So
She sent that in a letter to a child.
with the stance that she is taking on
And
gay rights.
she will not back down.
Yeah,
she
but
is
with
not
the
going to back
stance
down.
that she's taking on that, it really
I speak
like
up
it just upsets me.
Right, you're right. The minute you can blur that line or get past that, you will.
everywhere.
Like, and that's the
I
terrifying thing.
understand.
It's like
I want someone. If they would.
That's not legal, right? It's a legal
No,
thing. It's not legal
and I am going to ask my question. I just haven't had. It's fine. I'm trying to be in the background because that's how I roll. I don't like public speaking, Nick. I don't like it. No, I need to get over it. I need to just inflate, Nick. Get even bigger than you are. Just inflate. Ask all the questions.
If I could sign into Google, I can get my document and sign out of it. If that's okay. No worries.
You know, I know America's greatest country on earth. I fought for it, but I know it can be better. Go ahead.
John,
Are you Minnesota side then? Or the Wisconsin
No one.
So you like this?
I even told my own husband.
Okay.
You know what? You never have to run for your life. That's what I told him. If people don't open their eyes, what the government is doing, it was too late. When it's too late, your eyes are open, it's too late. So I just beg American people to open their eyes. How many people brainwashed all of us, not just our children? I beg you, as a medical person, I want to bring you so you can talk.
Thank you, Ian. We're going to start.
Okay, awesome. Thank you,
Sharon. And there is some
because I had my questions, had my notes, and then I realized that I'm keeping
anyone. So I was trying to focus on
and I hate to talk
parents
to
and staff members. You have a gentleman who's respectfully waiting, and he's going to take the first one from there. Anyone can raise their hand if they're interested in talking. I'm probably not going to circle back immediately to people that have already spoken, but bide your time and we'll see what happens. And frankly, this is a bigger crowd than I think we anticipated.
So let me just add that this is probably the most attended town hall in the 6.5 years I've been on the board. It's probably also the only town hall the board has actually had. Okay, so we appreciate it when chief officers have town halls no one attends. There you go.
All right, we're back. Tim Hoffman, parent of students, D49 students, home learning center, all those things. I would not understand that. I still not be 40, but so like this format, I like this format with I'm not sure, but we can mark record. So not everybody who has a faith and is a believer believes that you. I have a science statement every year once a year for my faith, or I won't keep my job, right? I have a Greek, with my arms, Telestai, and compassion. True compassion. Move into that for change, for everybody. We should get together and talk about where your truth is coming from. But we should do that in a coffee shop because it does not belong here. Period. I trust Noah. Your daughter is fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yes.
Okay, that's my question. Okay.
Please.
John.
You know me, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
It's simple. Lots of the stuff you guys will present with. It's kind of twofold, okay? In your own words, define CRT. And then once you define it for me, and you realize it's not ever been taught in K-12, if it were, why are you so afraid to be taught there?
You know, I've answered this question probably over a dozen times in public. So, I am on record more than 4 or 5 times saying to the public and to the staff that we do not teach CRT here. Mr. Hiltz, right back there, I finally realized he's here, has said the same thing. We do not teach CRT, but CRT is a different perception depending on who holds it. I guarantee you that there are teachers and staff in Chicago that see CRT as white kid's oppressor, black kid's victim. Okay? I've seen the video of that. So what we said was, we think CRT as a theory belongs at college level. We're not going to have it end here because it's discriminatory. So what we did is we reinforced our anti-discrimination policy to say, we're not going to discriminate. We're not going to discriminate against a black kid, a brown kid, a red kid, a yellow kid, a white kid, purple kid, green kid, whatever it is. Okay? So CRT is, to me,
I want the definition. That's what I'm waiting for.
right. Well, if you want the exact definition, I'd have to go look at what I wrote, a year ago.
Or Jamie Lynn's words.
Okay, but CRT doesn't, you're right, CRT doesn't belong in K through 12. And CRT isn't just...
I didn't quite say that. What I said was, even though it hasn't been taught there, if it were, why are you so afraid of it being taught there? But first I want to hear a definition of some sort.
First off, I said that it hasn't been taught. Secondly, I says it's not going to be taught.
Sure.
My definition is different from some other people's definitions. It's going to be different from yours. CRT is discrimination against children based on the color of their skin.
You got that right.
In certain areas. It's not always that way though, because different people interpret CRT differently.
But that's how you interpret it.
Right, and that's what we said was not going to be here. We weren't going to discriminate, period. So your black children are not to be discriminated against.
However,
but I hear that might be happening among the students, and so we have to look into that.
Yeah, because I think the push, what I'm trying to get to is the definition of it and what's going to end up ultimately being. Sorry, no. I'm trying to get the definition of it so I can see what ultimately is going to be kicked out of the classrooms and try and teach, so that I don't have to make any more police reports with the Colorado Springs Police Department because she called the N-word in the hallway, or she used the N-word from a teacher this year. This is what I'm trying to find out. Where are we going to, we've already seen where the board as a whole stood on Juneteenth, right? Does it matter to me? I don't think it should be separated. These are the things, these are your guys' words. We know, I made cards about it, we know it, right? These are the words right from up here. So how does she hear this? I mean, look at her and tell her, hey, you're not going to be discriminated against, even though I can't count the amount of times. You want to know what was cool about quarantine? I didn't have to deal with racism. I didn't have to find myself in her principal's office every day arguing about racism. Her friends text me because they know I'll show up. Happened again, happened again, happened again. So I'm concerned that the banning and calling CRT discriminatory is going to kick out any education or teaching around things that can change perspective of a kid.
That's also something that I made clear when we voted on that resolution. Okay, Frederick Douglass, I read from his book. Sojourner Weaver is a slave who wrote a book. Okay, Ulysses S. Grant talked about slavery and the Civil War. Black Oak speaks, a Native American, talking about how the Western travel of the white man, because there were black men in there were brown men in there, and there were other men, but it was the Western government, affected their lives and destroyed their culture. That is all history, the good, the bad, the ugly.
So is Juneteenth.
Great, I only found out about it a month and a half ago.
But you said it means nothing to you. I'm quoting you.
Yes, I did say that. And then we had a different discussion, a second discussion, where I said, whether it means to me or not, what I should value is what it means to the people it means something to. You know, it kind of sounds like a Rumsfeld quote, but it doesn't mean anything to me. I never knew about it before a month and a half ago. But what matters is, it means something to the people who are affected. And that's what I did not take into account, and I should have.
With that statement. I mean, I saw your vote. I saw her vote, which is fine. But like, Jamie Lynn, I'd love to hear you. I mean, I've talked to John.
We've already covered this in that session. So
yeah, I've talked to John. Like, I'd much rather hear.
But she's explained that. And you can explain it again if you want, but we're going to run out of time with all these stories and explanations. So we got to get down to questions.
Just really quick, I just have to say that there is only one human race. We are all people. And that is what we have to focus on. If we keep putting people into categories, we're not going to get out of discrimination. So if you see people of different skin colors, and you see people of different faiths, and you see people as transgender or of the LGBTQ community, if you see them as those people, you're not going to see who they truly are. We're people, we're human beings, and each and every single one of us has desires, we have creativity, we have knowledge, we have personality, and that's what makes us special. But if we continue to look at our differences, we're going to continue to divide, and that has been from the beginning of history. People have always tried to divide other people by looking for differences. That happened since Adam and Eve, since the beginning of the world. We have to look at each other as people that God died for.
So before I actually don't want to continue this subject here, okay, because we can argue about worldviews. We've heard your worldview, but offer a cup of coffee and get a little bit further into the details.
I'd just like to respond to what you just said. Yeah, we're all people, but I will never in my life be treated like you. I'm not you. I'm not white. I'm not like you. I'm not like most of you here. I don't want to be treated like you, and it's just very hard. So you can say we're all people, we're all equal, but that's really just not how it's happening right now. So until I see change from you guys, the people who I'm supposed to look out to, I don't know how it's going to change.
So let me address that in this very succinctly. In my house, you are treated the same as anybody else. In my presence, by me, you're treated like I treat everyone else. Doesn't matter what color your skin is, it doesn't matter what flesh tone you are. To me, it actually doesn't matter about your religion or non-religion, okay, or who you identify as, or gender, or whatever, okay? You will be treated the same as long as you're respectful and civil. Because that's what I expect to be treated that way, and I'm going to treat you that way. And this country was developed on treating people as individuals. And that's how we need to see the uniqueness of everybody's.
We're going to talk about the country development? Okay.
No, we're going back to you want to go back to the beginning. The country was supposed to, and it failed in many respects. But in 2022, that's where we should be. And if we're not, then there's something wrong with that.
Well, the board
and again,
recognized you.
I don't know how she's been treated in her life, but around me and in my house, she's treated like the person she is.
I promise you it's not like that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. These important topics, I apologize, but my boss needs to talk to me, and I don't want to be in trouble. So this idea that was on the board.
She gets to come to a town hall and speak.
I'm not his boss. First of all, I'm not anybody's boss. We stepped up and volunteered to do this because we love children. I see this woman work in her classroom. She's got 40-some kids. She loves every child. She throws herself into her classes, into her children. And 35% of her kids are minority kids. She loves children. She's been misquoted. I've gone on Facebook and it makes me puke how some of the things have been misquoted as to what she said. This is where we're coming from, and we're of like mind. We don't push homosexuality on young children, not because we hate homosexuals. We don't push heterosexuality on children. We don't push sexuality on children at all. Because
Neither
it's not
do we.
I'm not
seeing how. Neither do we.
We love all children. Or else, I'm empty nested 4 years ago. I committed in Costa Rica. I'm here doing this, and I'm working so many hours, but I love it because somehow we think we can make an impact on education for children, and we want to keep it pure. We want to educate our children. We want to teach our kids how to read. They're not reading. They can't do that. Have you gone to the store and can't count change? Let me finish.
Why don't you censor it?
I'm speaking as a board member.
I know. Well, you're not supposed to be.
You should be. In this
my God.
Okay? We don't want to teach our children that you are defined by your color. We want to teach them that you are defined by your abilities, by how kind you are, how much success you can accomplish by studying hard in school. You know, traditional education. Please don't make something out of
Make something out of nothing.
whatever it is, and
she's not misquoted.
She's a mother. Let me finish.
No.
She doesn't have to be here to do this.
You're a board. Sit down. You're a board member.
She wants to improve education for all the kids.
That's 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That's more than we get. 3 minutes is more than we get.
Didn't we censor her? Please, John.
Okay.
Do something.
Let's move on.
Oh my God. That's ridiculous.
This gentleman, the man in the gray shirt, the lady back there, and then you. That's the order I'm in right now. I'll keep moving on.
If you can remember after this guy.
So, my name is Joseph Sheldon. I don't live in this district or do much in this district, but I am running for political office of this district. I'm running for the Colorado State Board of Education in Congressional District 5. And so, first of all, I want to say that with you saying that you actually pray for LGBT students, I am one of the first 2 openly gay candidates on the state level. We have never had any from El Paso County, so I'm one of the first 2, and I don't need your prayers. So, that's the first. So across the United States, youth suicide has been on the rise. Here in El Paso County, it is highest in the nation. It is especially highest among LGBTQ+ youth. In 2003, William J. Palmer High School GSA sued Colorado Springs School District 11, the United States federal court, because they refused to acknowledge their GSA club. Case number 03M2535 in the United States District Court, District of Colorado, if you can't bring it up. The lawsuit was settled in 2005, making it a rule that if a school allows any other non-academic clubs, they must allow all non-academic clubs. With this being a rule and the alarming rise of LGBTQ+ youth suicide, I'm curious why you, Jamie Lynn, have called during public board meetings to shut down LGBTQ+ clubs and oust students who are LGBTQ+ to their parents.
Yes.
So just to be clear, I did not do that. So
I have it on video. It's recorded on YouTube.
Stop.
Okay, she can
Stop. Stop telling her what to say.
Yeah, our board understands, and we've explained it to the public, that if you allow one club, you allow all the clubs. If you shut down one club, you shut down all the clubs, right? I've explained that to a bunch of you guys. I don't recall hearing her say that. You may be misconstruing what she said or what her intent is, but I don't believe she said that. And I'll look at the data, but people hear things that I say, and they take it from their experience, and it's accurate from that experience, but it's not really what I meant to say.
It's just accurate.
It's not what you meant to say?
I mean, it's just accurate. I didn't hear it from my experience. I just heard what you said. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen,
go.
It's just that easy.
Just a quick question.
Here's what.
I hear lots of different sides, and believe it or not, I kind of agree with a lot of the different points that people are making. At the very beginning, you were talking about how it's very difficult to be an individual in that party as a board. I think it does need time. It's very difficult. So the question is, you're volunteering your time. Our students are there because they have to. This truly was. They don't show up, the parents are in trouble. They don't have a choice whether they go or not. So what are we proactively doing to create an inclusive environment for everybody so that we don't have to wear our shirts to say what side we're on? Who cares? I completely agree that it's a hard subject. But one of the levers that we use to judge our our CXO staff is their ability to meet test standards. Whether you agree with it or not, that's the measure. Every single student that goes to the school has to do that. But we seem to be bogged down in talking about individuals rather than what are you actually proactively doing to raise the scores, to create that environment for the employees as well as the students who have to be there.
That is a great question. Thank you for helping us to get back on why we are here. So the board has been actively working on the metrics for our district and being able to tie in our strategic objectives, our 5 strategic objectives to each of our responsibilities with our chief officers, even down to the classroom level. So our focus is to help our main goal is to help in the classroom, to go back to what we were saying at the very beginning. The teacher is the most important person in front of that classroom, in that classroom, and our strategic objectives are directed towards that. So with our metrics, and we've been working with that third party in order to get our metrics aligned.
Sir, I'm not going to let you do a follow-up because I'm going to try to get through a lot of people. Sorry.
With reading, our reading scores, our math scores, being able to, what we were talking about, hold people accountable. Holding people accountable is extremely important, and that's what these metrics help us to do on the district level, which will filter down into classrooms. I also foresee that we would like to be able to have an evaluation process that is the same for each teacher, no matter which zone you are in. I think that'd be a great idea, so that if you transfer one teacher from one zone to another zone or to one school to another school, that they are being evaluated the same way. You have the same expectations, and you know what you're getting into. And I think that's would be very important. That is what we are actively doing right now, is those measures, is those metrics, is helping us to achieve those goals. You have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, there's actually, I wanted to say, to increase student achievement, we have strategic objective for student outcomes, culture. We have one on pay, and we're looking at actually, 2 of us are discussing, how do we change that? Because we've raised pay a bunch, not enough, but a bunch. But it's not just about pay, we realize now. It's about retaining and hiring quality and exceptional teachers and staff. And then the next one is student behaviors. And then one after that is special education. So we're trying to actually wrap, he's got the order up, but we're trying to wrap what is needed in the classroom into what the focus is. And it already is the focus at the building level.
My frustration is you're talking about the strategic plan. And I'm sorry, when you're standing in front of a classroom full of people, it's tactical. You're military. You know the difference between tactics and strategic. My suggestion is to put the student at the top. You've all started with the plan, the path, but I didn't hear a how or a why in any of that. I don't hear about feet moving.
Okay, so if you want me to get into the tactics, I become a dictator, right?
No,
at the board
that's
level,
not true.
At the board level, we set the strategy, and then we provide the resources and funding and personnel that the schools are asking for. So our focus is the students. That's why we say student achievement and outcomes. We're focusing on students first and classrooms. How?
Yes.
Every school's going to do it a little differently. We have some schools that have more interventionists. We have some schools that hired paras for each grade level at the elementary level. Okay? So this plan is being implemented in the next school year, so we have to give the staff, whom I trust, and I'm sure Jamie Lynn trusts, time to develop these plans and put this into action at the school level.
Can I please say something? You guys need to start listening to the boots on the ground. You need to listen to the teachers. I have never been treated so unprofessionally as a human being as I was when I worked at Falcon High School. That is why you can't keep teachers. We are not professionals. I raised my concerns through a grievance to sue Holmes first. I appealed it to Mr. Hiltz. I met with Mr. Hiltz in April, and I have not received a reply. So the Colorado Department of Education.
Why don't you and I interact? Let's work together on that. I'm being a bad classroom teacher because I'm letting the impetuous folks get the voice. I want to get back in order. This young lady here, followed by the gentleman there, followed by this man in that, followed by the lady in the black and white top. I'll keep trying to keep going from there.
Hey, my name is Heather Zambrano. I'm going to actually take this in a completely different direction, so bear with me for all of you that are here for Jamie Lynn. Sounds like we have some big problems in this district, and I'm learning about a lot right now. We need to collaborate, we need to work together. We are your constituents, let's do this. But I'm here speaking on behalf of Banning Lewis Academy tonight, and there's a question that I want to just kind of lay out. Banning Lewis School Board was put on notice. There were two notices. They were drafted by Mr. Andy Franco. They were given to him in the direction of Mr. Hiltz and Mr. Miller. The drafts were shared with the Ed Board of Education on June 7th by Mr. Hiltz. On June 9th, the Banning Board of Directors received these notices. On June 10th, the Banning Board of Directors responded to Mr. Franco with regards to changing bylaws, which we didn't change anything with material. There were no material changes to the bylaws. And then secondly is the election process that we've gone above and beyond to drum up some community interest. So I actually reached out and I said, here's what's going on. So I want to ask you all, did you ask for Banning to be put on notice? Was this direction from you all, or was it from our zone leader? Do you understand exactly what was in those notices? Did you proofread them? And is the board still looking for more of a resolution? Because Mr. Andy Franco did not respond.
Actually, I've talked to several of your compatriots who left the board, 3 of them actually. And what we have tried to say is, this board doesn't control your board. You're an elected body, you answer to your voters. We're an elected body, we answer to our voters. Your voters can also be our voters. But we don't tell you what to do if it's outside the contract. Personnel matters, your administration, your board, okay? When it was brought to us that there was a minor violation of the bylaws, we said comply, okay? I will honestly say that I didn't realize that we were going to release the letters, but we did tell Andy to do it as a board. We said, fix it. If their election wasn't in compliance or their bylaws, and a violation of the bylaw was you created a bylaw without bringing it to the board, and your contract says you have to bring it to our board, okay? A level 1 notice, which is what went out, is hey, you didn't do this, correct it. It's like a discussion even, but that's not for everyone here. If you want to sit down and talk about that later, because it's kind of out of scope for this town hall, I'd be more than willing to do that, as I did with others. But I didn't, and then I was reminded, and I went back and researched it. And we basically didn't say release letters, we said take care of it, because he's our representative to the charter schools. And that was a 5-0 you know, hey, take care of it, Andy. So he took care of it based on what we told him to do. Not in the detail that you were asking me. I wasn't aware of that detail. But we did tell him to take care of it. So, go on to the next question.
Thank you. Here you go.
Hi, my name is Alex Sesson. I'm the official nominee to represent this district in the State House of Representatives.
Other than politicians introducing themselves, you don't have to say your last name, especially if you're afraid of retaliation.
No, I'm not definitely not afraid of retaliation. No, so running for office is the most rewarding thing that I've ever done in my life. And I get to talk with a lot of great people, especially people in the LGBT community, and I just asked them one question. I said, how can I help you if I make it to office? And they said one thing regarding our school district is if you just ask proper pronouns. And I asked them, I said, is this really going to make that big of a difference? And they told me, they said, yes, this is tied to suicide rates. They said it's tied to making kids feel comfortable and accepted at school. If we want children to succeed at school, we got to make sure they have an environment they feel comfortable learning in. So genuinely, I'm not being rude whatsoever or anything like that, so don't take this negatively. So what Joseph was talking about in the video is that you asked the question is how do we know these LGBTQ clubs aren't turning our straight kids gay and recruiting them? That was the question you asked, and my question to you is a sincere question. Why are you afraid of diversity, equity, and inclusion for this community? Because I hear your religion and I appreciate it too. But just to me, I think that Jesus would love these children, not show discrimination. So I would just like your honest answer to that question. Thank you.
So yes, 100% Jesus loves those children. He also wants them to know the truth. And by not telling them the truth is not showing love to them.
What truth is that, if I may ask you?
The truth is that they were created in the image of God, male and female.
Have you ever heard
That's the truth.
Is this a public school district or not? I'm not sure.
Are we in church right now?
Like, what the hell?
Or is this
So-
a political...
Jesus ran around with like 12 dudes.
Those kids,
This is the sort of thing that I was hoping will happen after the meeting, like a small group, come.
All right, but there's a limit,
have
man.
deeper conversations, because I can't have this kind of going together, because everybody can't hear us.
Well, when you keep saying God and Jesus in a public forum...
well, he said that he mentions Jesus and that Jesus loves those kids. Absolutely, he loves the kids. He loves everyone.
That's what you believe, though.
That's the truth.
Just answer his question.
Answer his question, though. You believe to be the truth.
Restate your
what's the
question.
So believe it or not, it's kind of an age-old question, right? The religious thing. So we're not going to get it solved here.
His question wasn't that.
No. You know, follow-up.
I was just going to ask my question, so she said me to ask me to repeat it.
Thank you. Can you go
ask her a religious question?
Thanks.
Yeah, so my question is whenever you have the video, maybe you ask the simple question, that I stated, is what if these LGBTQ community clubs are going to recruit straight kids and turn them gay? I want to know if you truly believe that. And if you, like, why do you have a problem with diversity, equity, inclusion amongst this community? And that's just my honest question, and I just want to know why.
So it goes of the fact that the LGBTQ clubs, etc. You need to look at statistics. So statistics of people who are joining in this community has skyrocketed. That's not normal for that to just skyrocket off the charts.
Whose normal is that, though?
What standard?
And those kids, they're vulnerable at this time in their life. This is a time when they don't, you guys remember when you were kids? The confusion, I'm not sure who I am, I don't know who I want to be, who I'm going to grow up to be, what career I'm going to take, what path I'm going to go down. It's you understand that. You were a teenager at some point. But we shouldn't be introducing confusion, even more confusion to them. Introducing ideology and introducing things to them that
Like God and Jesus ideology?
honestly goes off.
You're introducing your ideology to them, talking to them, telling them to pray away the gay.
I am not here.
They're not normal. How's that not normal?
Please,
She's not answering the question.
Well, you know what, then follow up later individually. We're not gonna have a shouting session, folks, we're not.
But his question was not what she's
Thank you. Go ahead, if you want to finish.
But he did say it. He said it twice. I heard the question.
Okay, we're moving to a new question.
We're moving to a new question. The answer to the concern is that you're leading kids down a path of confusion when, yes, that is exactly
That's
what's happening.
if you say my belief is this, different.
Yes, I think we need to, my name is Robert, I have a granddaughter that graduated from Vista Ridge, and I got 5 grandchildren here in District 49. I think we need to get back to basics. Our founding fathers, I don't know how many you know about them, but they all acknowledged God. And they got a lot of their beliefs from the Bible.
Incorrect. False.
Anyway, if you probably haven't read the writings, right? That's probably it.
I've probably read way more.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's one speaker.
This Constitution was birthed and went into effect in 1788. How many other countries have a Constitution that lasted that long? Because they were righteous men. Okay? Jamie didn't talk about truth. We used to have absolute truth before. Now, and when I saw moral relativism, values clarification coming up, I knew that was demonic. Because it said that we didn't need God. And Scripture says, those who hate me love death. That's what God says. And now when we see death going on, you look like, who started the Ku Klux Klan?
Christian.
I'm asking the lady right there, the black lady.
Christians.
Who started the Ku Klux Klan?
People that burn crosses.
Can you answer that question?
She hasn't been taught that in school. She hasn't been taught that
The
in school.
Democrat Party started the Ku Klux Klan, Jim Crow, segregation.
You don't get to talk to her.
Because you don't know your history, and our children are not trying to
You know my history. I learned it from my parents, not people like you.
True history taught to our children. Not lies,
Why are you talking
not confusion, because the devil is the author of confusion.
We're not in
So,
We don't care. Be quiet about your Christianity. This is not a parochial school district.
Hate from, it's a culture war going on right now.
Yeah.
Why do so many people want you to come to this country?
Not because of people like you.
Because the freedom
To get away from people like you.
We're alone. There's no question there. Guys, sit down.
That's ridiculous. In a board, that's ridiculous.
This isn't a board meeting.
Then why'd I be talking? Why'd I be
I'm
talking?
about 10 seconds from canceling this.
We should. You probably should, because we don't even listen to that.
Stop.
We're going to just continue to have speakers.
You want students to come?
I'm going to try to help them to direct their comments to these board members.
You want
up here.
students to come?
And just incidentally, right now, I've got this young lady here. I've got the gentleman in purple.
No more stories, ladies and gentlemen, just questions, please.
And then the young lady back there. That's my order right now.
Well, thank you for calling me young. So I'm Jennifer Scarcelli, and I'm talking both as a parent and a staff member. And this, I'll be starting my 24th year of teaching this next year. I'm talking as a parent because my kids love their teachers in the district. They go to the district. We live out of district, but I choose to put my kids here. And their teachers are bailing out of this district, and it's because of pay. But I have a solution to the pay. So here's a little bit of history. And it really came, one of my kids' favorite teachers that he just had this last year, who coincidentally I taught, and it's his 10th year in the district, so that's how ancient I am, that he's a tenured teacher. He's applied to another school district way down south. And so then I started looking at what are the root causes, and I've been here long enough, and I keep a good paper trail, and I went back to old pay scales. And the problem with our pay scale is this. When it was destroyed and voodoo math starting with the 2013-2014 school year. If I go back to the 2012 school year, 2013, our base salary between then and now, so 10 years, we've done a good job. It's grown 25.4%. So that's a good, healthy number. The problem is our district retention, only 44%, and this was a number this last year, stay past 5 years. So we've done a really good job raising years 1 through 5. That's about a 25% increase. So now I thought, okay, so what am I gonna do? So I looked at my pay, and I took, if I was a teacher 24 years in 2012-13, and then I just got my notice of salary letter like we all just did, and in 10 years, my pay has grown 12.4%. That's the problem why teachers are bailing out of this district. And there's a way to solve this. So then I did a comparison of all the other districts. What would Jen make if I jumped across the road or down south or up north even to District 38? And it would be about an $8,000 increase, which is why one of my kids' favorite teachers, he says, I don't mind that 20-minute drive from my house. It's an $8,000 increase at 10 years, and I need a retirement. And I'm at 24 years, and I've always worked, well, this year I got lucky, I only worked 2 jobs. I've always held 3, because I need to think of my dismal retirement. And I'm not here to bash administrators, you all work hard, and you deserve that rate of pay. And that rate of pay is actually slowing down too. I got those numbers. But here's the thing. So we're about between 10, my number is 10.9%, so I'm gonna say between 10 and 11% behind the other districts when I looked at my pay. And so here's what's happening. Well, here's the thing. I guess the questions, because it's, right, this isn't a town hall. What metrics are you looking at specifically when you're looking at raising pay? Because pay has gone, so if you do the math, mine has gone up 12.4% over 10 years. Do the math per year. So when we're giving these big raises, where's that money going? Because it's not going to teachers on the pay scale, even though it appears that way. It's a smoke and mirror game. Yes, I'm getting to the question. Oh, come on, everybody else talked. Okay, so here's the thing. What exactly, and I know Brett's gone, but we'll have a new CBO, and we have a director of finance. What are you actually going to do to close that gap, like now, for that 10 to 11% we're behind? We have the money. In financial transparency and online, there's about $23 million sitting out there. And that all comes from the audits. There's money there. Within that, I went a little further and said, okay, so if we don't have the money, where are we spending the money? And so I took the time to go through financial transparency of accounts payable. How is the district going to hold certain departments accountable for their overspending? And when I say overspending, I went through August through February in our practice for over a decade. We can find the description of where every dollar has been spent if you look at that. March, April, and May, those columns have disappeared. And one person in the central office has spent over $8,000 traveling every month out of state. Hotels, baggage, breakfast, all of that. That is one person. And this is how it comes out of the classroom. My training, again, for the 3rd year in a row for my team has been cut because we don't have the money. And it takes, and 3 of us is not $8,000. So what is actually going to happen? What's the plan? The action plan to dig into the financials and find out how that money's going to be used.
You ready?
Because we have a teacher working a second job, a teacher working a second job, a teacher who's been working 4,000 years and 2 jobs back there, and a whole lot of others. And I'm tired as a parent of my children coming home and saying, guess who just quit? And they love them and they're good and proven people.
You ready? Okay, so as you well know, I've asked these very similar questions, and I've not quite gotten the answers as in detail as you, so we'll sit down again and hear some more in the detail, but we're going to be posting a CBO position eventually, or whatever we determine on Wednesday. It may actually take a couple of meetings, but this is actually one of our concerns. We know we have money, but it is geared, or what's the financial term? It's slated for different things. And we'll get the answers to those questions. I personally, right now, believe that we need to spend more money in support of classrooms. I've talked to Peter, I've talked to Jamie Lynn. We're going to introduce a tasking on Thursday's meeting, which is the only place we can do it as part of a board of education to get consensus, to basically have the administration to determine 3 courses of action to do exactly or similar to what you've said. We actually, I have it worded maybe a little differently, but I can't task Peter, nor should I be able to task Peter from this microphone right here, or from walking over there. It's got to be the whole board that does it in a public session. And so those are some of the questions and concerns that we as board members have, and I've tried to address before we approve the budget. A budget should reflect your priorities. And in there, we are focusing on people. But maybe there's some funding at the zone level, at the headquarters level, which is central office, or at this level or that level, where we can pull a little bit from, or a lot from, and put it to people supporting classrooms. And that will help our teachers. Believe me, there's going to be a lot of meetings happening starting Wednesday for the next month, probably. And we're going to be asking and addressing, hopefully, those questions and coming back to you all with proposals, because we don't just dictate. We like to say, we like to make sure that the public knows what we're thinking, and then they give us input. And sometimes your input's not always that good, by the way, but sometimes you're laser focused on certain things that we weren't even thinking of, and we're like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, and that's the majority of times people communicate with me. It's to basically point out where I said something that I didn't mean to say, or said something in error, or just gives me an idea. Right now, I got 50 ideas floating around my head. I talked to Mr. Hiltz about 3 or 4 of them today. But it takes time to flesh those out. So, Jennifer, we are going to be addressing those concerns. I've asked some leaders and principals, where can you pull money that you don't need to be spending to put into classrooms? That's 1/5 of the board asking. Not the whole board. That's 1/5 of the board, so it's not a direction, it's just to get them to think, right? Because eventually I'm going to ask it in a public meeting so that we can focus more on the classrooms. You know what, that sounds like a political answer, but I don't run the district. If Brett was here, he might be able to answer that a little bit clearer, or his replacement was here. They're the ones that run the district, okay, or operate the district, I should say. We have the oversight. So my answer to your question is, we're actually thinking exactly what you said, based on conversations I've had with teachers and principals and administration to address those issues. But they're not going to happen in the next 2 weeks. But we are going to move forward with them. I hope that is a partial enough answer to say, that gives me hope. Now, a month from now, when I ask you the same question, where are you going to be? Hopefully we'll be more down the road to an answer. Okay?
Hi, my name's Mike Kyle. I'm a stakeholder in that I'm a parent, student, and taxpayer in this district. I'd like to direct this to you, John. First, a comment on something that you said earlier regarding student safety and, with assaults and etc. I felt like, I understand where you're coming from But I also feel like that answer was also quite unsatisfying because there are a number of disciplinary incidents that happen throughout the school year that do not require the involvement of law enforcement, but the staff still have administrative means that they can use. You know, if a kid steals a pencil or, you know, is engaging in name calling, they have tools that they can use to keep students safe. Now, understanding that if there has been a serious crime, but that crime has not been reported to law enforcement, you can't necessarily treat it as a crime, but there are still methods that can be used in the school in order to make students feel safe. And so I would just like to ask you and the rest of the board to think harder on that in order to come up with some more effective strategies. That was just a comment, you don't have to respond. My question is, I saw you hold up a U.S. Constitution. I, like you, took the oath to support and defend this country against, all enemies, foreign and domestic. One of the elements of that Constitution is the Establishment Clause. And of course, board bylaws also take that Establishment Clause and expound upon it further. Talking about what kind of education can happen in the classroom. But a lot of those things, the clauses in there also apply to, officials. And so when this board goes behind those desks and is in session and is conducting business, and there's proselytizing that's happening back there, that's a violation of the Establishment Clause. That's a violation of the board's own rules. And when a district member goes to a graduation ceremony and uses that as a platform to proselytize, it's a violation again. So when the board holds a prayer meeting out at a flagpole before a meeting, that's a violation. So these things are creating an opportunity where the district is going to be forced to waste resources, including money, defending itself against lawsuits that it cannot possibly win. And these resources are going to come out of the classroom. So what I would like to ask you is, what is being done to hold board members accountable to following its own laws as well as the Constitution?
Our rules are actually policies, not laws. So there's a very big difference. What we can do as a board to correct another board member's behavior, some of which has happened, is we're supposed to educate them. That's a step I actually want to add to our policy. But educate them on what the policy is, why we do things the way we do them. Secondly, it's to correct in private, which is something we do in the military a lot, maybe not the Army, but the Marine Corps does. It was a joke. Obviously,
not in a joking mood tonight, sir.
You're missing out on a lot then. Third then is to address it. If it can't be addressed in private, it's to be addressed in public. You've done this wrong, you violated this policy, blah, blah. The last thing you can do is censure, which, that's a piece of paper. To some people, it's going to mean a lot. To other people, they'll ignore it. If they've already ignored policies and rules, they're going to ignore that. In between number 3 and number 4 is the board can take away duties or assignments or stuff like that. Okay, but there's very little that we can do, okay, to correct a board member that isn't following those things. I can stay on scope, or don't say this, or correct them in the meeting, and I've done those things too. Where you have the impression, and maybe you're right, that there are violations of the Establishment Clause. I'm operating on the First Amendment.
The Establishment Clause is in the First
Well,
Amendment.
I think that if a politician says something that is not appropriate, the people hold that politician accountable. Okay? Have the First Amendment right when they're speaking of them, from themselves, of themselves. Okay? If you disagree with their speech, again, the First Amendment isn't really to protect people from speaking to each other. It is to protect the government from saying you can't speak about that. Okay? And another part of, the Constitution is the right to association. And your kids and your families, you have the right to associate with whoever you want to. And I support that. 100% I support that.
So we're at time. I have 2 more people that I had identified. Are you okay to do that?
I'll stay longer.
Okay, so we're going to stay for 2 more questions. I want to just make a legal point. The prayers that have occurred outside of the board meetings, there's no violation of establishment there. It just is not. So,
And before he goes, initially, hold on, before that answers his question. Initially, the way this prayer at the flagpole was brought up was a violation. Okay? And it was because the board member that said we're going to pray at the flagpole during the meeting.
I disagree, and I don't think you should go down this path. Appreciate it. Next question.
Lawyered up.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Hall. I'm a retired special education teacher. And I'd like to correct one thing that we were saying here, is that I became a special education teacher not because I was the most important person in that classroom. It's because the kids are the most important kids in that classroom. And secondly, for people who worked at the high school, in the special ed department, I worked there as well as a long-term sub a couple of years ago. And I totally understand the dysfunction there, and so does the board, so does Peter. And I get it. It's really bad. And thirdly, along those lines, as far as retaliation goes, I understand that as well. I was a special ed teacher at a charter school down in Pueblo, and they were the most dishonest people on the face of the earth. And I blew the whistle on that to the charter school academy up in Denver. They got shut down, not before they fired me. They fired me first, and then they got shut down. But that attitude continued throughout the rest of my teaching career, and I could really give a damn less, to tell you the truth. 1 minute. Okay, so I actually have a question. So, on January 20th, 2021, President Biden signed an executive officer threatening to withhold federal money, or holding federal money hostage for the free and reduced lunch program. Part of that was his interpretation of Title IX. And part of that interpretation of Title IX is that it prohibits notifying parents if their child decides to assume a different gender. So how is the board going to address that?
I'm not sure we have time to address that, but short answer, we will not do we're not going to have parents not knowing that their kids are identifying as a different gender.
You're going to out kids to parents who might not be supportive? Put them in a dangerous.
That's dangerous.
You guys have been awesome. This is our last question.
Hi, my name is Ella. Last year I attended Falcon Middle School, and the month I will be attending Falcon High School. You mentioned earlier that the LGBTQ groups are turning people gay. You say that, but so what if they do become gay? They found out who they are, and that's who they want to be. Plus, they don't really turn gay. That's who they are, that's their future, that's who they were born to be. If you don't believe that, that means you do not support the children in the district. How are you going to make these kids feel supported and loved?
So as a teacher, I have several students who enter in my classroom doors with very different backgrounds, and students who are of different genders, etc. And my job in front of those kids is to teach them how to read, how to write, how to do math, how to know their multiplication tables, and making sure that they are well educated as best as I can. And those kids love coming to school because they know how to read, they know how to write, they know how to do math. They're working hard. They're doing what I know that they are capable of doing. We don't talk about their gender. That's not the place for it. That's not my job. It is not my job to talk about their gender. That's their parents' job. That's their parents' decision. That's not why I'm there. That does not come into my classroom teaching. Now, as a board member, my hat's a little bit different because I am also being held accountable for the teaching of 29,000 kids. This is not just my classroom that I'm talking about. I have to also, part of my role as 1/5 of the board is to make sure every child is being in an environment where they can learn and be successful. And the best place where they can learn and be successful is if we're not talking about things that shouldn't be discussed in a classroom. We need to be talking about reading, writing, math, being successful, working hard, showing integrity, being honest, being devoted to their learning. It is not my role to tell them that they should go be an activist on the street corner holding signs. That's not my job. It's also not the role of those teachers, and that's why I'm on the board. I'm on the board because I'm seeing things being taught in classrooms that is not the role of a teacher. And we need to get back to the actual role of teaching. We need to stop thinking about these other pathways. So those kids, they are coming to my classroom and they know that I'm going to respect them. They know that they are going to learn. They know they're going to work hard. I'm going to keep them accountable. That's what they do as a classroom teacher. And that is what I want as for every teacher, for every student in this district. That's why I'm here. I want that equal opportunity for every kid without all the other stuff coming into our classrooms.
All right, so we are going to wrap up. I got to say, I'm fiercely proud of this district. I've been associated with it for a long time. What Peter and some other folks started back in the 2010 era, which led to all sorts of choice, all sorts of parent engagement at the building level to make decisions, the embracing of an incredibly diverse community, including particularly our military community and again our LGBTQ communities and everyone. It really is remarkable when you compare us against, sort of the normal run-of-the-mill district. And sometimes the face of it, which is the board, looks a little bit dirty and grimy because they're working hard on things, but that doesn't necessarily represent what's actually going on in the classrooms. And I hope and pray that you don't take that away, that there's somehow, just sort of an endemic, deep-rooted on that. It's not. This is a great district. I'm pleased to say that I'm confident that Peter's going to stick around with us, so we're going to keep moving forward. There's going to be a lot of positive in this coming year. This is over. We have a board offsite on Wednesday morning. It's offsite. It's going to be intended to be mostly an executive session, which means people are welcome to come, and then they're going to have to step out of the room for the bulk of the session, but it is open. We have a Thursday evening regular meeting, which will include public comment and all of the regular business that happens, and some of the outcomes of the Wednesday offsite might be reflected in that meeting, and certainly going forward. John Graham, at least, I don't know about Jamie Lynn because I haven't asked her yet, but is willing to stay here and field questions. We need to be respectful of staff. Again, we're in the summertime at night. They miss their supper. So I don't want to keep the building open too late, but a few 15 minutes of questions, just personal interaction is fine. We will likely see another sort of town hall sometime in the future. Appreciate everybody coming. We are done.
Okay, so I actually need all of your help because we're not done. I didn't tell Brad about this. What I need is you to email D49@D49.org. I need to know how we did today and where we can improve. And I know I didn't answer all of your questions. Okay. Some of these answers are more involved or deeply educated. So I heard something today that I hadn't heard before. Help educate me on some of what teachers are going through, and what staff are going through, and what parents are going through, and what students are going through. We need to keep the conversation moving forward. So don't feel afraid to participate. Let me know what you could have done to improve this besides the back and forth stuff. Okay? I'll stick around for a while and have additional questions.
Yes.
You're cute. How did you do that? Thank you. He's cute. How did you get that? It's not that. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that way.
Sorry?
Really white people look like me.